Hey guys, my name is Nathan Entz. I'm a novice racer with CMRA, and today I want to tell you how to race on a budget. So in order to race on a budget, you have to cut out a lot of costs that the people with a lot of money are doing. I have to do things differently. I'm a college student. I do have a almost full-time job, but I'm not rolling in the dough, Still got to do everything on a budget. And so I'll tell you today how I do things to keep costs down. And so first, let's go over kind of the what I call non-negotiables, things you have to pay to race. So things like the license. So CMRA has a $160 per year license fee, and you have to have an AMA membership, which is $49 a year. So basically $210 a year, just flat cost period. You have to pay that if you want to race. The AMA membership does come with free roadside assistance for your motorcycle, your car, your tow rig, all your vehicles. So that's really nice to have, but you are required to pay that $49 per year. So that is the yearly cost. And then race entries, obviously you can't haggle those down. Those are just dictated by the race organization. So for example, with CMRA, I usually do 4 races per weekend. So a total of 4 races will be $310 for the entry fees for those 4 races. That includes Saturday morning warm-up and Sunday morning warm-up. If you do want to do Friday practice, which I usually do, that's another $180. So $310 for 4 races plus $180 for Friday practice. So those are just flat fees every weekend. You have to pay that unless you don't want to do practice. If you know the track well, know the bike well, know the conditions well, then there's no use doing the Friday practice. But I've been doing it just to get more experience. So then the other costs are what I call negotiable, like things that I can save money on by doing things differently from other people. So first of all, I want to talk about the bike gas, the gas that you use in your motorcycle. I use just pump gas, 91 or 93 octane, depending on where I am. And so I spend about $30 per weekend on gas. I use anywhere from 10 to 15 gallons, usually closer to 10, on gas for the bike and for the generator, which we'll talk about the generator later. So I spend about $30 a weekend using pump gas for the bike. Other people that use race gas are upwards of $200. If you do a Friday practice and 4 races and do all the warm-ups, you can easily spend over $200 on fuel, on race gas. And so if you have a stock bike, I would highly recommend not shaving the head down, putting a thin head gasket and upping the compression, changing the timing to require pump gas, because you'll get 5 or 10 horsepower depending on your bike. On an SV650 you'll get probably 5 horsepower, and that's an extra $170 per weekend just for that tiny little bump. And so I would highly recommend using pump gas if you can at all. Another big expense is the gas to get to the races. Probably my biggest expense, or one of my top 2 biggest expenses. I used to have a Dodge Durango that I would pull a trailer behind, but then I would get like 8 miles per gallon on the highway because that trailer just is a huge wind block, and you have to pull that trailer through the wind, and so you burn through gas. I got rid of that, and now I have a V6 Chevy Express cargo van, and that gets upwards of 18 miles per gallon on the highway. And so depending on how far I'm going for a race, it can be $50 to $200 round trip if it's the close race or the far race for me. Hallett in Oklahoma versus Houston, Texas. A round trip is $50 and $200. And so that is a chunk of money, but compared to what I was spending on that Durango, that's nothing. And if you have a 5th wheel camper, if you have a big toy hauler, you're going to be spending so much on gas. And so trying to get a smaller vehicle or a van that doesn't require a trailer, you can save a lot of money on gas. Part of the reason I got the van is so I could sleep in it, and then I save on hotels. Just sleeping in a hotel, you can spend, $300 per race weekend pretty easily. If it's $100 a night, you're there for 3 nights, $300 a race weekend right there. Versus if you have a van, a camper, even if you just pitch a tent, people do that, then you're sleeping for free. You're saving $300 a weekend by doing that. If you can sleep in that, even if you have a cargo trailer, you can sleep in there. That's what I used to do before I got the van. The next thing I want to talk about is the cost of the bike itself. I bought this SV650 for $1,900, and it was already race prepped. I've done some things to it since then, painted it, and I swapped some stuff over from my old GSXR onto the SV. So it's not exactly the same as I got it, but it's almost everything is the same. And I paid $1,900 for it. Already safety wired, already had a front end swap to a Gixxer front end. And so it was really well set up, aftermarket suspension for $1,900. And deals like that do happen fairly often. My previous bike was a Gixxer 600 that I paid $2,500 for. And it had aftermarket suspension, and it had track body work and stuff on it already, Brembo master cylinder. It was set up really well. And so I would say definitely under $5,000 you can find plenty of great deals on already set up track bikes. And if I were to go to sell this, I would get at least $1,900 back out of it. And so, you might pay, let's say $2,500 or $3,000 for your track bike, but then you race it for a year or two, and as long as you don't crash it and mess stuff up on it, you can sell it again for $2,500 or $3,000. And so you're not going to lose money to depreciation. You might lose money if you crash, you have to repair it, but it won't really depreciate unless you get a 2021 bike and spend 20 grand on it. You're never going to get that out of it when you go to sell it. But if you get an older bike already race prepped, someone's already taken that depreciation, someone's already spent the money for exhaust and suspension and bodywork, so you can take advantage of that and get a cheap bike. Next up, I want to talk about tires. This kind of goes along with the bike thing. I would say, as far as choosing a tire brand and compound and stuff, just try things, try new brands and compounds, and see what you like. See what I would say generally, the more you spend on tires, the better they are. Generally, the really cheap tires are really cheap tires and not as good. But yeah, try out the big names. I'm sponsored by Pirelli. I've been running Pirellis ever since I switched to slicks, and I love them. They're grippy. They're predictable. They send me a lot of feedback through the bike. I really like them. And so that's what I use as Pirelli slicks. But try a bunch of different brands. See how much you like them. See how much they cost. See if one brand is great and the other one is almost as good but way cheaper, then do the one that's way cheaper. So you can save a lot of money on tires by shopping around. Also, you can save a lot by wearing them down more than some people. Some people will do 1 or 2 races on them and then switch them out to new ones for maximum grip. But I don't do that. I wear them all the way down. I can use about 1 rear tire per weekend, and the front will last several weekends. And so I takes a long time for me to wear out my tires, and I save a lot of money doing that. So I spend, if you say, ballpark, a set of tires is $400 for a set of slicks. It'll obviously vary. Some are more, some are less, but I would say $400 is a good ballpark for a set of tires, and it also depends on the size. So if you can make them last longer, don't wear them down to a dangerous amount where it's like you're gonna crash. I replace mine before they get to the wear mark, but I do wear them down pretty much to the wear mark, and a lot of people don't. Another thing that helps with that is getting a smaller bike like this Suzuki SV650. It has 75 horsepower, and so it's not burning through tires like a 600 or 1000 would. Generally the smaller the bike, the lower the costs are going to be. That's not always true. There are exceptions, but something like an R3, like an SV650, like a Ninja 400, are all going to be really cheap bikes to operate as far as tires and fuel and parts to some extent, although the newer bikes, the Ninja 400 parts can be more expensive, but those are going to be cheapest. Then the like 600s, Gixxer 600s, R6s are going to be a step up, and the 1000s are going to be more than that. You burn through a lot more fuel, you burn through a lot more tires. The bigger bikes, generally, the parts are more expensive, and so if you can get away with running a small bike, you'll save a lot of money, and you'll still have so much fun. I've had more fun endurance racing a little Yamaha R3 than I did racing my 600, I would say. It's all a blast, and so keeping the bike, riding a smaller bike generally keeps costs down. I'll say that. So going back to tires, do you need a generator and warmer? I run a tire warmers because these Pirelli slicks really need to be up to temperature. You can't really get away with not using tire warmers with slicks. But do you need to do that? That's a really good question, because you can save a lot of money, save a lot of hassle if you don't have to run tire warmers. That's $800 right there for a set of warmers and a cheap generator. You're at $800. You can find them used. I would say if you do need to use warmers, then find a used set. That's what I did. But if you are not up to the pace of, winning novice races or getting close to it, then I would say just use street tires. Use something like the Pirelli Rosso Corsa 2. I think the Rosso Corsa 3 just came out. Or if you're a Dunlop person, use the Q3 Plus, Q4. Something like that, street tires that you can get away with not using warmers, because you save a lot of hassle, you save a lot of money. It's like $800 right out the door for a generator and warmers. And then next place you can save money is a suit. Obviously you need helmet, suit, gloves, boots, but the spending more money on a suit, like, I don't cheap out on gear. The things I spend the most money on relative to other things are my rider gear, my tires, and my brakes. Those are things that I always want them to work no matter what, period, end of story. And so, I have Brembo master cylinder on the SV. I have the Gixxer front end, the brakes with the SBS carbon pads. I have Pirelli tires. I have a Bison suit. I use the best of the best for that stuff, because if you're crashing at 120 miles an hour, do you really want to be wearing that $300 cycle gear suit? When I first started track riding, that's what I did. I had the Sedici cycle gear, the cheapest one I could find, because I just didn't know if I would like it. But if you're considering racing, you're far enough in that you really should be getting a good suit. So something like Bison, I'm sponsored by Bison, so full disclosure. But I highly recommend their suits. They're custom fitted to you. They're really protective, really strong. I've seen people crash in one suit, crash multiple times, and it doesn't blow seams open, stuff like that. Obviously, freak things are gonna happen, but on average, the Bison suits are the toughest I've seen. So those are about $1,000. You can find a good deal on a helmet. I would say don't get a used helmet, but you can find sales on a new one. You can get gloves from Bison. You can get used boots. So you can save money on your rider gear without skimping on it. But I would say don't skimp on it. Get good stuff, even if you do get used, but don't get a used helmet. Okay, so the next way you can save money is on a transponder. Everyone needs a transponder on your motorcycle when you race. So your three options for transponders. First of all, you can rent them from CMRA. I think it's $50 per weekend though, so that adds up. If you buy one that's subscription based, it's about $110 a year, and you'll have that recurring cost indefinitely as long as you race. The third option is to buy the old style transponders that don't require a subscription, and those are about $400 or $500. So I would say if you're just starting racing, not sure if you're going to get into it, just kind of want to feel it out, I would say rent a transponder. If you do a couple race weekends and you think, yeah, this is for me, I want to do this, then I would do the subscription-based transponder. But if you say, you know, I'm committing to racing, I'm going to be doing this for a long time, no end in sight, you know, 5+ years I'll be racing, then I would say buy a transponder, buy the old style that's not subscription based. Because if you spend, you know, let's say $450 or $500, if you spend $500 on it, you can use it for 2, 3, 4, 5 years and sell it for $500. You're not going to lose money. Same as like buying a used track bike. I'm not going to say it's an investment, because that's not the case. You lose money when you're racing, period. Unless you're the best of the best of the best of the best, you're not going to make money motorcycle racing. But with that, you know, you spend $500 on it, use it as long as you want, and sell it for $500. It's not going to decrease in value. So anyway, I did the subscription-based one, the $110 a year. If a good deal popped up on an old style transponder, I would buy that, the non-subscription based. But right now I haven't seen one, so I have the subscription based. And then kind of last thing I want to say are try to get sponsorships. They're not like the old days, whatever that means, where they're going to pay you, you know, 50 grand a year, and all you'll have to do is come ride a bike, and they'll take care of the maintenance, and they'll pay you for it, and blah, blah, blah. That's not going to happen unless you're the best of the best of the best. You're not going to get paid to race. But you can get sponsors, you can get discounts on tires, on suits, you can get contingency money for if you win a race, you know, you'll get, let's say, 40 or 50 bucks from whatever tires you use, Pirelli or Dunlop or something like that. But you have to have that sponsorship, that contract signed with that company. And so a lot of the way you can get sponsorships is to have a bigger social media following, Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. Obviously my YouTube channel is small, but it's nice to have those sponsorships to give you discounts on things. You're not gonna make money. You're still gonna be paying to race, but it'll offset some of the cost of racing. So that's pretty much all I had as far as saving money. But other things you can do that I thought of are like endurance racing is really cheap seat time. You can get together with, you know, 3 of your buddies and buy a Yamaha R3 or Ninja 400, and you can do these 5 to 8 hour races with CMRA and pay. I actually don't know off the top of my head what the entry fees are, but it's much cheaper than sprint races. And so you get, you know, an hour and 15 minutes at a time if you want it, you know, battling it out on track with other people, learning the track. You learn so much endurance racing. So I highly recommend that. You can do mini bike endurance too, not with CMRA, with a company called TMGP. I've never done that though, so I'm not a good one to speak on it, but that does exist. And another thing you can do is you can split costs with your friends, like gas money and stuff. I'm in Wichita, Kansas, so all the races are at least 2 hours away from me, and so I could buddy up with someone and get a bigger trailer and haul everything down there, split gas. You can do super teams, which is basically endurance racing, but you use your own bike and then swap the transponder onto the next bike. So you're endurance racing, but you don't have to buy a specific endurance bike. I can use my SV650 and then pass the transponder on to my friend who has a SV650 or a Gixxer 600 or Ninja 400, whatever. And that's really cheap racing too, really good fun racing for cheap. So that's about all I had. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or if you have any ideas on what you think I should talk about next, what you want to hear about. I'm planning on at some point doing videos on, you know, how to track prep your bike or race prep your bike with safety wire, with bodywork, stuff like that. And also if you haven't even started racing, I'll do a video on how to start doing track days. So things like that, kind of for newer riders, newer track goers, newer racers. But yeah, let me know if there's something in particular you want to see and anything you have a question about. But thanks for watching. Hope you have a great day.